Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Goaltending, where your why is bigger than your excuses. Today, we're getting into knowing when to quit when you're working toward a goal. It is crucial to understand knowing when to quit so that you don't spend too much time and too much energy pursuing something that may not actually be for you. So we're going to dive deep into that today. I do want to ask you to like, subscribe, share, comment with your thoughts and questions. This is a really great one. So I want to hear your stories. I would love for you to comment and talk about, a time when you either quit too soon or you quit at the right time and the new opportunity that it led to. I would love to hear those stories. So please share your experiences and how you dealt with it. Let me know if the things in the episode today really align with how you dealt with that situation, or if they help you in terms of working through a situation you're going through right now and understanding whether or not you should quit in something you're working toward. Now, I want to remind you, today's episode is fueled by Prepping with Peppers, and I'm excited to announce that they are giving 20% off to new customers if you use the coupon code HEALTH20. That's HEALTH 20. So let's start right out with why understanding when to quit really matters. I mean, ultimately, you've been told throughout life that nobody likes a quitter, right? There's so many things and negative connotations that align with quitting. And so we automatically have this negative connotation in our mind that tells us quitting is a bad thing. So there's already a stigma around this. And so that may lead you or someone you know to sticking with something longer than they should, giving time and energy to something that they're no longer passionate about, that no longer aligns with their long-term goals, that has them at a plateau and feeling in a stuck place and ultimately not feeling fulfilled. And so if you're feeling that way, I highly encourage you to listen to all of the tips in this episode, because it's going to help you understand whether or not this is something that you continue to push through and work through, if it's just an obstacle or a challenge, or if it's actually time to quit and to consider working towards something else, diverting your energy in a different direction. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you identify, but I want to go through several steps and things to think about, ways to figure out if it's time for you to quit or not in today's episode. But first, let's just talk about a few people. Obviously, there's a ton of people out there in the world who at one point quit something and later on went on to do great things in a different field or on their own or in some other direction. So the first person I'm going to bring up is an author that I have just loved reading, the main series that everybody knows her for, and that's J.K. Rowling. So J.K. Rowling left her job as a research and bilingual secretary for Amnesty International so that she could focus on writing. And I don't think I have to tell you how successful of a writing career she went on to have with all of the Harry Potter books and becoming one of the best-selling authors in history. That's one example. Then you have Jeff Bezos. He left a high-paying job working in New York, and he ultimately went on to build Amazon, one of the world's largest and most influential companies out there. And then a big favorite of mine, kind of a heartwarming story. I read his book, Pour Your Heart Into It, while I was deployed. So I have a close connection to that, really found a passion for coffee. And so I bring up Howard Schultz. And actually, there's 2 points in which he quit throughout his journey. So first, he was working in sales and marketing for a company that made household items. And one of those items were drip coffee makers. And so he noticed that there was a company on the other side of the country that was purchasing a very high volume of those coffee makers. And he went out to Seattle to find out what was going on and why they were able to sell so many coffee makers. And he ended up discovering and finding what initially was started as Starbucks, with just a couple locations at that time. And he fell in love with what they offered, the environment that they had. And so he left his job that he was doing well at, to join Starbucks. And then as he went down that journey, he had some differences in opinion with the two men that had ownership of it to start with. And so he decided to branch out and start his own coffee shop. And they fully supported like that vision and him wanting to go for his own thing. They just didn't align with their views and where they wanted to go with the company at that time. So Howard Schultz goes off, he opens his own company. And then a couple years later, he ends up having the opportunity to buy Starbucks. And so he's able to actually go back, buy Starbucks. And this is back in the 80s. And he turns it into the brand that we all know today. Incredible story. But ultimately, it's important to understand that if you put too much time and energy into the wrong things, you are not going to reach the greatness that you're destined for. So be sure to evaluate. But I also want to encourage you, don't quit too soon. Because if you give up on something that is meant for you just because it gets challenging, then you miss out on a lifetime of opportunity and fulfillment. So I want to get into how we figure out whether or not what we're working toward is for us. So let's get into just understanding opportunity costs. Like if I'm doing one thing, that means I can't be doing something else. So just a real easy kind of metaphor to think about is if let's think of investing money. Let's say that we buy a stock. And so we buy that stock for, let's say, $10. The next day, we still own that stock at whatever price point it's at. But ultimately, our money that's invested in that stock has an opportunity cost of what else that money can be doing. So if I continue to hold that stock at $10, is there another opportunity out there where that $10 could be earning more or could be in a better position? All right, so every day that I choose to hold that money there, that's another day that I'm choosing that over any other investment option. And then also there are sunk costs. And so that's the really hard thing to get past is once you've committed so much time, energy, money, resources, anything like that, once you've committed a lot to it, it's very hard to let something go. So if you do identify that like it's time for me to quit on this goal, it may be a whole lot harder to quit if you're holding on to thinking about everything that you've invested in it already. And so a sunk cost is understanding that those things are already spent, they're already gone. Regardless of the decision you make, there is no recovering or getting those things back. Unless it's some kind of tangible item that you can sell and make some money back from. But ultimately, the point is those investments are already made. That's already gone. And so you can't over-focus on what has already been spent. You have to focus on what is the best use of your time, energy, and resources moving forward with the current knowledge that you have. All right, so just want to make sure we understand opportunity costs and sunk costs as we get into it. So here's a few signs that it might be time to quit. And I say might, but first, you may just have a lack of progress. So you hit a plateau. And ultimately, if you're in this place where you're constantly just staying at this baseline, you're not making the progress that you expected. You are not moving forward or up or in a positive direction even. You're just stuck. If you are in one of these stuck places, that might be a sign that it's time to quit. At the same time, it may be an obstacle. It may require an adjustment to your plan. It may require other things, but that's a possibility. So if you are at a plateau, it may be time to evaluate, is this a plateau that is going to be permanent, that I'm going to continue to be and feel stuck, or is this something I can overcome? Then you have diminished passion or interest toward your goal, whatever it is you're going after. And so in step one of the goal setting process, we're focused on finding our why. a why bigger than our excuses. That why is a big driver of your passion. You should have aligned with your personal beliefs and your values with this goal that you're pursuing. And so if you reach a point that you no longer feel a strong passion, you're no longer resonating with your why, you're just not finding the same interest that you had as you started, it may be time to evaluate if there is something that you can do to revamp that motivation, to re-spark your interest and your passion, or it might be time to move on. This next one is crucial: your mental health and well-being. So if you are negatively impacting your mental, your emotional, your physical health in any way, it is not good to try to sustain that long term. So look at, is there a way that you can modify your plan in order to not be negatively impacting your well-being? If you can't, this is when you need to let go. It's not worth sacrificing your health and well-being, your mental health, which also impacts the people around you that you care about, as well as yourself. So really make sure that you look at and evaluate that. Maybe we have a stressful period and we're not in the best place during that hard time. But if that is something that's going to be prolonged, if that's something it's not worth it. So try to identify a way to adapt, to modify your plan if you can, but if you can't, then it may be time to let that go. And then you have feedback from others, like other people around you that you can learn from. So I think of it as, when I did my MBA program, entrepreneurship focused, we built businesses throughout the program. And with that, a very large part, early on and throughout the development of whatever service, product, or business each team built, they had to do customer discovery interviews. And so all that means is you're getting outside of the building and you're going to who you think your customer would be, and you're asking them questions that are not in any way telling them what your product is about, just to get information on if you are solving a problem, if your product is actually something that they're going to need, without telling them what the product is, because you want them to be unbiased in the information that they give. And so as you're continuously learning from others, building relationships and growing as you work toward your goal, you may get feedback and information that you didn't previously have that lets you know that this might not be the right path to go on, or might not be what you thought it was going to be, or that it just doesn't align with where you want to be long term based on the new information that you have. So you have to be very deliberate in seeking and processing information that you receive from others. Some of it may not always be the best information or knowledge, so we have to filter it, and we have to understand that sometimes people give inaccurate information. It's not always intentionally, but it happens. And so make sure you're filtering the information for what is factual and what is useful to you in your journey. Then once you understand those signs, the next thing that we want to do is just evaluate our situation. And it's really tied to step 5 of the goaltending process of reviewing and refining your plan. So part of that reviewing and refining is identifying milestones, benchmarks, things that you're working toward that allow you to be able to check in on your progress. So by having those things in place, as you review and refine regularly, you're constantly going to be evaluating where you are now, what kind of progress you're making. Are you hitting milestones when you thought you were going to? Or are you getting to them much, much slower than you thought you were going to? Or are you not making any progress toward them at all? Ultimately, you want to set clear, quality questions in ways of tracking and measuring your progress, so that when you do that review and refine, whenever you go to check in on your current situation, you have some way to measure whether or not you're actually getting closer to your goal, making the progress you expected. And if you're not, once again, look back at the plan. Is there something I can change and modify so that I'm able to make the progress that I want and need to make to reach the goal? Or is this maybe something that's not for you? Or is there maybe something that I can be doing, an opportunity cost? Is there something else I could be doing that is a better use of my time, my resources, my energy, that is helping work toward my long-term goals and where I want to be. Health, fitness, fat loss, sleep, all goals that are impacted by the fuel you put into your body. I've tried meal prepping at home, and I've tried multiple meal prep companies, including those that deliver, but I'll be honest, nothing has been better than the meals I get from Prepping with Peppers. They offer fresh, never frozen meals on a weekly rotating basis, so you don't have to get tired of eating the same meals over and over again. So save yourself some time for the things that matter most by ordering your meals at preppingwithpeppers.com. One really simple, easy to do thing is do a pros and cons list. So I'm weighing the pros and cons of doing this versus not doing this or doing something else, right? So list out your pros and cons. I mean, that's a great way to go. It can be done in a lot of different things in life, but by weighing the pros and cons of doing it versus not doing it, it gives you a visual representation of everything that's in your mind that you know of that is a positive or a negative to what you're going after. And if there's a lot more cons than there are pros, and they heavily outweigh the pros, it may not be worth pursuing this anymore to you. And then another thing to consider when it comes to just evaluating that overall situation is understanding that you need to approach it not only emotionally, but also logically. There needs to be a balance of both. Because you have those like gut feelings, that emotion, things that tell you like, I don't think this is right for me anymore. And that's important to listen to, but you shouldn't only make the decision based on emotion or just on a gut feeling. What are the facts? What's the information that you have? What is your check-ins telling you? What kind of progress are you seeing? As you look at your plan, like is your plan detailed enough to actually help you? Is there something that can be modified in it? So really balance and think about both. Like understand that why you're making the decision. And make sure that you have a little bit of both, that there is some logic, some facts, some information behind it to support it, and that your emotional support is there as well, that you emotionally feel that also. And if you have both, that kind of lets you know it may be time to move on from that goal. So how do you actually make the decision? Like, how do I get there and just say, okay, it's time to quit? I'd say first, just spend some time with yourself reflecting. Actually think through what I've already talked about. Reflect on that. Reflect on, is this something that you really, really want or not? Or is there something that would be way better for your mental health, well-being, time, energy, like all of that? Is there something else that would be better for you in terms of where you want to be? And so reflect. Just spend time with yourself. Think about how you feel, what you think, what the progress is. Do you align with your why still? And not only that, but how will quitting impact you? Like, what are the repercussions of quitting? Like, what are the things that are going to change? Because likely the rest of your life is not going to necessarily stay the same. You're either going to have time that is now available, resources that are now available. It may change relationships. It may impact like how you're thinking and feeling at the time, because it can feel like a loss. And so the next piece I would get into is really focusing on understanding and accepting your decision. Once you've gone through the evaluation piece of it, you understand the different variables. You've done your pros and cons. You understand whether or not this is impacting your mental health and your well-being. You go through all of that, and if you decide that it's time to quit, accept that decision. Don't hold on to what would have been if you would have stuck with it. Don't hold on to anything else except the decision, because you made the decision based on the information you had in your evaluations and how it was impacting. So once you accept it, now you can plan for the transition. So it's not just, I'm just quitting on this and that's it. No, now we create something new to look forward to. What's next? It doesn't mean this is the end of the journey. I'm not just quitting. I'm quitting so that I can divert my time, energy, focus toward something else. So what is that? Start to think about the future. Start to think about what the next goal is. Start to think about what is the best use of your time and your energy moving forward once you quit. And then stay flexible. Flexibility is truly a key to success, to entrepreneurship, to the pursuit of goals. If you can remain flexible, you open yourself up to more and more opportunities, because as you quit one thing, you don't always know what new doors are going to open, what new opportunities will present themselves, where life is going to lead next. So you may have some ideas, some goals in mind, you may not. But by being flexible, you keep yourself open to whatever opportunities lie ahead. Another really important consideration is, how do you tell your team or the people you work with or anybody that it impacts, how do you tell external influences that you are quitting? And so you need to have your decision made prior to having that conversation. Because it's highly likely that the people that you tell, you may have, built relationships with these people, have some kind of emotional ties to them, have built trust through working together. And so you trust their opinions and how they feel, and you care about those things, but you've already made a decision that is what is best for you. You've already done the evaluation. You already know that quitting in this situation is the best thing for you at this time. And so as you approach the talking to other people and letting them know that you are quitting whatever it is that you're quitting, understand that it's possible that they will try to convince you not to, or to encourage you to stick with it. So this is where you need to truly understand why you're quitting and stick strong to that. Be firm. Understand that it's probably coming from a caring place, that they're trying to support or tell you to stick with it, but you've already done the research and you know that this is not for you. So understand that may happen as you go into the conversation, so that you don't feel this kind of need to people please or to do it because you care about these people, but rather you know what the best thing is for you, and can let them know what that is. And so the next thing is, how do you pivot? So we need to be looking forward, thinking about the next idea. But with entrepreneurship, it's about pivoting. If you identify that this product or service is not going to go quite where I thought it would be, you can change the product or service, or you can switch to something else different entirely. But ultimately, what is the next step? So is your goal something that completely gets thrown out the window, or is it something that you can modify so that it's not the same thing anymore, but it still works toward where you want to be long term? So there's a couple of options. You go for something new entirely, or you make a significant modification to the plan you already have in place. So think about how you would change and adjust or move on to something different. And then finally, we need to think about really how we move forward. So we talked about identifying the new goal, to having something to work toward. A really good thing that you can do, especially if you don't have a new goal or a new path ahead right away, is just focus on building some resiliency skills. Focus on building some self-awareness, on understanding your character strengths and the character strengths of others, so that you understand whenever you have a new opportunity, what you bring to the table and what others bring to the table and how you can best interact with them. Focus on your mental agility, understanding how you think and how that thinking impacts how you feel and how you react to things. Focus on some resiliency skills. Learn and understand those things in this time. This is a great opportunity for you to work on yourself, and really just hone in on your awareness, on your development, and really on building some positivity. I'm really building on some positivity in your life. And then just be a lifelong learner. Seek new learning opportunities. Is it great if you already know what you're working toward, because then you can be intentional and align whatever kind of education or learning you want to do with what your goal is and where you want to be. But if you don't know, you can never go wrong with just learning new things. Think about what is something that you've always wanted to learn, or what is something that you're passionate about or care about, and then find ways to learn new things about that. And then as you continue to learn, new doors and opportunities open up. A lot of times that align with whatever it is you were learning or whatever it is you're passionate about. Things start to present themselves as you learn. So you don't always have to know what it is as you go into learning. You can just do that. And then you're just improving yourself to make yourself the best version of you possible when you are ready for the next goal or challenge or opportunity or anything that comes your way. You are more well equipped to take that on. And so I want to remind you once again, don't give up on yourself. One of my favorite quotes, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he says that you shouldn't have a plan B. Because if you have a plan B, you're putting energy and attention and time into planning for something that you don't want. You're planning for a backup instead of putting every bit of your energy, your focus, your time toward plan A. So I want to encourage you, go all in. Don't allow challenges and obstacles to stop you. But if you go through the evaluation criteria and metrics that we talked about today, and you identify that this isn't the right goal for you, then it's okay to quit. There's nothing wrong with that. Find a new plan A. So don't have a plan B. Stick to your plan A. Don't allow challenges to stop you. And as you do your reviewing and your refining in step 5, throw this in there as needed. If you're seeing that you're not making the progress you expected, if you're hitting plateaus, if it's impacting your mental health and well-being, any of that, just evaluate and see, is it maybe the right time for me to quit? And if it is, that only opens you up to new opportunity. That does not mean failure. So we have to overcome that stigma of thinking that quitting is a bad thing. We just have to make sure we're looking at it the right way and understand that. So I want to thank you all once again for tuning in and allowing me to be a part of your journey. Don't forget, go like, subscribe, comment with your thoughts and questions, because I really want to hear what your all's experience has been when it comes to anything that you have quit, thought about quitting, and what that led to for you. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts and questions to join the conversation, and let's grow.